Welcome everyone. Let's start the second panel, from research to policy implementation, obstacles and challenges. So we have here Carlos Borrego, CESAM, Centro de Estudos do Ambiente Lunar, António Pais Antunes, do CITTA, Centro de Investigação do Território, Transportes e Ambiente, Bernardo Campos, do CCDR-C, Comissão de Coordenação e Desenvolvimento Regional do Centro, Robert Stussi, Transport and Urban Mobility Consultant, and João Lino, Commercial Director at Transdev. Thank you all for your presence here. Carlos Borrego, in your opinion, will it be possible to have all modes of transport decarbonized by 2050, in line with the target set by the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change?
Well, I don't know if they will be, but we really need to. If we want to have the Paris Agreement of less than 2 degrees in 2050, we need to speed up the decarbonization. And this is in a way, I should say.
And how can we do that, speed up the decarbonization?
Well, first of all, the electric cars are one of the intermediary solutions. And I say intermediary because I feel that in 20 or 30 years we will have a completely different solution. We need to have. Otherwise, we will not have enough energy for that. Then let's speak about this next 30 years, and we need to have the electric cars, and starting thinking that those electric cars should be made from the beginning, most with renewable energy and not the fossil fuel one. And this is the big change on the way as thinking about electric cars. And those cars are mainly also for cities. All the rest, the transportation, should be seen in a different way. And then this is one way to go in the direction of the decarbonization of the transportation, because we have a quite important problem with aviation and airplane and maritime transportation.
António Pais Antunes, do you believe it will be possible to reach a zero carbon economy in 2050?
I believe that we will make significant progress in this direction, but it will be perhaps too ambitious and too risky from my side to make any prediction with respect to this evolution. But if you don't mind, perhaps we have here a very interesting subject. And the interesting subject is how to move from research or science to policy and then to practice, to the real world. And I believe that since it's the overall subject for this discussion, I believe that it could be interesting also to address this issue. I don't know whether I will have this opportunity because I'm not so certain about whether you will ask us a question about that.
Of course, but be my guest, go ahead.
But this is an important issue. And something that perhaps we should think about is looking into what important has happened in the last, let's say, few decades, with respect to transportation. And something that concerns me is that let's think about 2 or 3 of these evolutions that were very important in our lives. For instance, low-cost carriers. This has changed the life of many people. People that could not travel before are not traveling. They are spending weekends in Paris and in London, and something that would be completely impossible. How important was science for this change? And I'll say very little in the beginning. This was the idea of someone that invented low-cost carriers. Then this evolution moved from the United States or North America to Europe. Then we also have our low-cost carriers. The changes have been enormous, also because even the carriers, the airlines that were not low-cost now are low-cost, so they offer low-cost service at most. And so science has not been able, I believe, to produce in transport these breakthroughs that, for instance, it has produced in health sciences and in other areas.
So if it's not science, what it is? It's a different mindset?
It is business models, different mindset, someone that can see good opportunities. We can also think about something that is related with low cost, that has also changed our lives, revenue management. Revenue management, these prices that change continuously, that change for tickets in aviation, but also for rental cars, so they're changing all the time. This was also invented by someone that was working for United Airlines, and how can we fight the low-cost carriers? So this person came out with this idea. Now, what is science doing is sometimes picking up on these ideas and then trying to improve them and work on them. But I mean, the major changes are not typically due in transport. I mean, because if it is health and other sectors, probably it is different. But in transport, all the big new ideas that are changing our lives do not come from academic research centers. Vehicle sharing, it was not invented in universities. It was invented elsewhere. Zipcar was perhaps the first company of this type. And then floating car sharing was invented perhaps by Daimler, not in universities. Now the universities and the academic research centers, they work on how to improve these ideas. This is probably what we are doing well or better. So
Research.
I mean, researchers are not coming with the new ideas, but are perhaps trying to improve the new ideas. It is essentially what we are
And what
doing.
is, in your opinion, the future of the research in the transport sector?
Okay, what is the future? I'm sure that
I know you can predict the future,
in the
but
number, I cannot predict the future, but I
you
can
can
predict
have a
there are
guess.
lots of good opportunities that are, this is an area that has been changing a lot because of these ideas that come from outside the transport research, and themselves they motivate new research and new approaches and there are opportunities. I will be happy in a new round of speaking of something that I've been dealing with lately, and I believe it is interesting and tell us a lot of the difficulties of combining research with
can say it now.
innovation.
Or is that a teaser?
I'm already talking for
That's a teaser for the next round.
Okay, it would be probably. But
Okay.
it is an interesting experience that I would like to share because it has a lot to do with this process of not going from science to policy to real-world practices, but that combines a little of everything and that shows how difficult this can be, this process can be.
Okay, so please remind me if I didn't ask you in the next round,
I
okay?
will remind you, don't worry.
Robert Stussi, would you like to
I
compliment?
would like to make a comment on that because
Okay.
I think it's completely wrong, this old idea from science to policy and so on, because most of the things nowadays are disruptive. We don't like the expression much because it looks like Taliban, but I give you just one example. Vienna had the first bike sharing system. It was not Paris and not everybody else. They have it now for, I think, 15 years. And they managed to have a beautiful service, costs a lot of money. They have 120 stations with 1,500 bikes. And it works beautifully and publicity and everything. And since last year, 3 companies came in, what is called dockless bikes. You leave the bike wherever you want. You have a QR code with your phone. You unlock it. If somebody takes off the code, then they don't know where is the bike, nor I know it. Never mind. But the 3 companies together put within 12 months 4,200 additional bikes. That means 3 times more. Okay, there is a lot of discussion about the pros and cons. People say the bicycles are vandalized, abandoned, all this thing. But the fact is, it's happening. I mean, we cannot, with all the regulation which we citizens, we control everything. They don't control because these things happen. And another example, a second example is that, you know, like in Canada, like for 10 years ago, they made a phone app when nobody had phones yet, that the blind person wouldn't need a dog to walk. And the app gave all the information, including if the traffic sign was red or green. I don't know if the sign, if it was out of order, if they would have the real-time information. So that's a perfect system, an intelligent system developed with science. But then there are other things. On the practical world, we should also try to develop. Because the other day, I wanted to park my car, make intermodality in the Gare d'Orient, and I wanted to know how much I have to pay for my car parking. I went to the app of CP, which is about the worst which exists. Hopefully nobody's here from there is the friends of the railways. But CP has about the worst page where I could explain it. So I put in the search thing on the web page the question, parking Gare d'Orient. What is the answer? 132 answers. So would you have the courage to look through 132 answers? So I said, let's forget it, went to Google, asked exactly the same question, parking Gare d'Orient. And he put me to number 199 of the CP. He knew in the CP application where was the right answer, but he gave it to me in 1 second. So that means the guys in the CP who have a lot of money, they should be as intelligent as Google, no? Work down from down up. Okay. So
Bernardo.
I'm agreeing fully with your proposal you brought up.
Bernardo Campos, let me go back to the previous subject. We're talking about the decarbonization of the European transport system. In several strategic documents, the European Union gives high priority to the decarbonization. Based on your frequent contacts with the local authorities, do you believe there is a genuine concern of the part of the local policymakers for this topic?
Good afternoon to everybody. Now, I should say that I'm not going to talk with a journalist, because if I put in my mind that I'm going to talk
I'm not a
with
journalist here. I'm not a journalist here.
I would like.
I'm just a moderator.
I would like. But no, I want to say something that it seems to me it's something between the true and the lie. When we talk with local authorities about these things, decarbonization and so on, is not something that is well assimilated by them.
And why is that?
Is a problem far away.
Is that
Of
that
course.
far away?
Of course.
Only on their minds, not in yours.
Because what they do feel, of course, it's not. When I talk, this is not the case of Aveiro, the case of Coimbra, and so on. It's not the case of these small cities that we have here. But in general, those things that low carbon emissions and so on are far away from their preoccupations. Why? Because
They're most
they
concerned
have
with
all
the
other
taxes
problems.
and.
They have other problems. And the problem is how the people that they have in their territories could have transport, public, private, and so on, to communicate it, to go out, to go elsewhere, to go to shopping and so on. So they are behind those problems. It's by car, by diesel, okay, result. It's another solution, okay. But the problem, in fact, is that they have other problems to solve. So it's a big, not a big issue for them. And in that situation, of course,
But how can we change that mindset?
there is a way. it's public policy and financing. It's
Financial benefits, for example?
financial grants, of course. We say to them, no more question about roads and so on. If you have something like that, okay, we can finance that.
Fiscal benefits for...
Or grants, so no problem. But in fact, is the public policy by financing, by fiscality and so on, that can change
change the mindset.
Change the mind.
And
change
also the
policy.
increase of the public investment, public and private investments?
For instance, some months ago, I have with me some people that are working town here in central region for a private owner, private enterprise transport. And they are, what they want to do, something that is, of course, we have already talked about this during all day, real-time information and so on. And they want to do that. Of course, we have here a problem. Public policy in this precise case is not to private operators, it's to public operators. In the sense, local authorities only. Of course, we can have there some kind of agreement between the local authorities and
But if you
private.
had the public policies, would the private sector follow the example?
Exactly.
João, what do you think about this?
I think that
The answer is the public policies?
I think that there's missing a line for sure. I think that in Portugal we are living from different perspectives, and we must find a way together. We must change.
Together, public and private.
Public and private, everybody, operators, not operators,
Citizens.
politics, consultants, everybody. I think that it's need to do something, because the years are passing, the problems are every day we are facing new problems, and nobody cares about nothing. There's not a line. There's not a clear line defined by government or by authorities or by operators, for instance, in transportation. It's not, for me, it's
But a clear line on what
a
specifically?
clear line. What's the way what's the way we should follow? What's the way we should follow? I think everybody is doing something. For instance, we are transport operators, passenger transport operators. We are doing something. We know that, for instance, several universities, several consultants are making something, but I think that's not a clear policy to achieve the objectives. Of course, technology for sure are going to help us. I think that nowadays there are more people interested in find good solutions for the problems we are facing. But anyway, we should speak more. We should participate more. We should, like our previous panel, we spoke about data. We spoke about several things that in Portugal for sure we have, but I don't have access to private data of certain institutes or certain companies, and I think that it's a good principle to make something together.
In your opinion, there has to be a common goal and more partnerships between public and private?
Yes, and I think that all people should know what is paper on this, what is their role in this this way, to achieve the objective. If not, everything is doing a lot of things, but are we going to achieve the result or not?
Carlos Borrego, taking into account the market penetration of the electric vehicles, do you think the problem with the air quality will be solved in short or medium term?
Well,
or that's not the only answer?
yeah, but there are one that I can say in the last 50 years, we have invested billions of euros trying to decrease the air pollution, not only in cities, but as well in industries and so on. And technology have really progressed a lot, but we have still air pollution. Then there are other things to do. And the other thing is to involve people in the decision. Is not only to tell to the people what they should do, is to understand what they want to do and follow that. And most of the things are imposed to the people, and then the policy does not go. And air pollution is exactly what happened. This is why now we are saying we need a project that I presented a very short part this morning, and most of the people know, the Clear City, where the people are involved by workshops, by discussions, questionnaires. The kids are involved with apps, with several games and things like this in order that the people know, first. Second, put on the hand of the people the technology that could help to understand better and to make some suggestions, whatever, having bikes that are equipped with equipment to measure the pollution and to tell people in that moment where he is inside the city, what is the situation? Why is smelling bad? And what are the concentrations and so on, that people can understand in each moment of their route. They can understand what is going on.
And so, and also, why is the weather so unstable?
Exactly, and then the people are more aware about the situation, and then they can put some some suggestions in order that they feel involved. This is the same as some companies that put the solutions to the people and impose the solutions, and finally they don't get any answer, positive answer from them. Because this is not the way. The way is to understand what the people would like and to adjust in a certain case, because we know that normally the solutions presented by people are not the best ones, but the mindset should be that one, and not against. Like some architects that put the very nice building, but it is not a usable one, very nice for people. This is the same. And now for air pollution, that's going into the answer now, and briefly, we think that electric cars will be the intermediate solution for cities, but only for cities.
Why the intermediate solution?
Intermediate in the sense that in 30 years we should have another solution, because the electric car is not a final solution for sure. And I don't know exactly.
Because to produce an electric car, you have to use fossil
fuels,
energy.
but not only, because batteries are one of the critical problems now. In 20 years, but we can have some 30 years, some electrical cars with a completely different type of batteries, based on nanotechnologies and things like this, which is now just starting. And then we will move to a different, and the cars should be seen, this is the best approach, not as own. Last panel we discussed this, not the people are owning the car, but really car sharing. This is and public transport. This is why we will not need cars like electric ones, because the people will not have their own car, but they will use a different support in transportation. And if we don't go in that direction, the people will not follow the solutions.
So first you have to give information and education to people.
Yeah, and the research done in that area focus on passing the information and getting some information in order to progress with the research. Finally, what we are doing now in the sense that involving people in air pollution.
António Pais Antunes, first the teaser, now the project.
So in a way we'll continue on this idea of what people like and what people do not like. And something that people for sure do not like is congestion in airports, delays,
Traffic.
missed connections, etc. This is something that, and this is related to what I was planning to talk about. Some years ago, we understand that there was a good opportunity in trying to improve the current procedure that is used to allocate slots in airports. This is allocate slots, so the airport capacity. So the right for an aircraft to land or take off, this 5-minute period. This is a serious problem in Portugal, and I would say in general in the Western world, because it is very difficult to build airports here. It is very difficult to expand our airports here. This is not so easy, so difficult, for instance, in China, where they just built, I believe it was 500 airports, but that we cannot do that for sure in our part of the world. And so, when I realized with some colleagues that this slot allocation process was essentially conducted by hand, trial and error, you understand, there should be a better way of doing this. And so we approached some slot coordinators. In Portugal it is ANA Airports of Portugal. And okay, let's do something to improve this process. And we started to work with them, and they were extremely collaborative initially. This means that even one of our PhD students spent some time in the slot coordination office in Lisbon. It is also important to say that we are now, and this is for the first time in, I believe, our history in Portugal, we are rejecting flights. So there is no space at all to accommodate new flights in Lisbon, also in some hours in Porto, even in Ponta Delgada there are problems. So because of the growth of the air transport, now
There's no capacity to receive more
no
flights.
capacity. In Lisbon there are days where there are no capacity at all from 6 in the morning until midnight, even later than that, till 1 p.m. So this is a problem because, of course, this means that you are losing tourists, you are losing business, etc. So this has an immediate implication in our economy. And so this looked like a good opportunity. So we start to work very cooperatively. Initially, we had this collaboration, etc. Their attitude in the meantime, mainly lately, has changed. Why? Because I must tell you that the rules for slot allocation, that are so-called IATA rules, so it is defined by the Association of Airlines, they are so complicated, and there are lots of priorities and things like that that they did not believe. Now this is my understanding, that we could really come out with some meaningful tool to do this slot allocation in a more rational and transparent way. Now, when they understood that we were able to do in, 1 or 2 hours, by just one computer, what they are doing, 10 people, in 1 month, we were not so happy. I understand that they put themselves on the defensive because they understood.
They felt it was a threat.
Exactly. Okay, this is called, this has a name, this is called Luddites. Okay, because this has to do with the name of workers in the past that decided to destroy the machines that they were working with. So this is a name. So they are acting like Luddites, and what they did was just to inform all the slot coordinators in Europe. Okay, be cautious with these people.
Because they started thinking we're going to lose our jobs because a machine can do what 10 of us can do.
This is my understanding of the changing of attitude, and even the fact they have contacted all the slot coordinators, in Europe. Okay, let's avoid this evolution because this could be dangerous.
That's called science, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, so.
Some machines are going to replace us in the future.
Basically, many of them. this could very well happen. Now, this also illustrates a little some problems and difficulties when you are dealing with research, so progress, and on the one hand, and then policies and real world, etc. And it is curious because sometimes you think that, okay, aviation is a sophisticated industry, and it is to a certain extent, but in some points is extremely primitive. Extremely primitive. For instance, in this case, slot allocation is primitive. But one of our former students that is now working at the Guarulhos, the main airport in São Paulo, the main airport in Latin America, he was telling me 1 week after arriving there, to work there, he called me on the phone and said, "You will not believe how they allocate gates here." Gates is, you know, the departure gates. It is post-its, post on the walls, and then they are changing, okay, this aircraft that was planning to go here and now moves there,
And if the glue of the post-its
exactly, with the
doesn't
post-its,
work.
changing post-its from left to right, etc. Something that is extremely primitive to do something that is better than this by hand process. So, but of course, there were 2 or 3 people just working on moving the post-its from left to right. Now, if you introduce something
Just
that
moving
is
the post-its,
a little
that's
more
a job.
sophisticated, probably this too long to drop to build. So this is also something that we need to take into account when relating, let's say, science and policy and real world. And there are lots of other interesting things.
Bernardo Campos, what can we do to reduce this gap between the research and the policies and the real life?
Can I
Run? No, you can't.
can I put a parenthesis before I
Of course,
answer your question?
of course.
Of course, I'm not sure, but probably none of you has seen in the presentations that we have this afternoon one single reference of one of the partners that participates in one project presented by those colleagues of Scotland, I think, because his English says more instead of more. The colleague, I don't know the name exactly, but it seems to me that he's a Scottish one. Oh, is that you? And this colleague puts there in the slides one of the partners in the project he was engaged. Thessalonica University Aristoteles. And that reminds me one thing. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, says something absolutely radical. The ultimate target of the human activity is happiness. And to be happy is to feel good. So, when I entered here and became at this moment, I have in my mind those conclusions. Not definitive, of course, but those conclusions, that conclusion. Well, the action that I have done today is something important to me and to my happiness. Because most of the people that have talked, and of course me, of course, almost seems to me that I'm going to be happier people tomorrow. Because there is some kind of technical solution for some kind of problems that I am going to move to from one place to another. But sometimes it comes to my mind, but okay, there is a problem. For instance, think of course, I should say that I'm totally ignorant. I'm absolutely ignorant. For instance, talk about car sharing. Well, okay, there are many reasons for me to share cars and so on. But for instance, in a society that we have some kind of problems of safety, is that clear that the partner that is with me in my car is a
So let me
synthetic
ask
one?
you, which is safer for you, a taxi or an Uber?
By feet. If I should choose, I go by feet.
That's not an option, taxi or Uber.
But you see, what is the problem?
I'm
that
just
we have?
asking because Uber can track your whole road.
But you see, it's the part that with me in the car, it's synthetic one. It's somebody that is some crazy of your head and say to you, oh, you are too tall and I'm going to kill you because I don't like the tall people. You see, there is a phenomenon that belongs to people, that's unique to people, that we don't know how do they react on.
Of course, and that's
So,
and that doesn't belong to taxi or Uber or walking.
Of course. So, the happiness in the future has to be combined with that possibility that we have that is not so happy in the future. But regarding to your question between how can we reduce the gap between the science and between the real world, between the science and the politicians, between the science and the policy makers and so on. Of course, there is a problem. The first problem that we have is the language. We don't have the same language. For me, it's very difficult, even today, sometimes following the thinking of the persons. I'm not an academic. So it's difficult. So the first problem that we have is that the language. For instance, Professor Carlos.
A very technical language.
Technical language.
Okay.
Technical language. For instance, Professor Borrego says a thing that I could sign for it. Is that we have to involve people in decision making. Of course, I have no doubt about that. But think of other aspect of this. Okay, but it's the same thing involving people in solving a problem here in Aveiro. For instance, the access to the hospital here in Aveiro. Is the same language that we can use when we live with the academic university, with university or academic person, or with the people of the Bairro Santiago. The language is the same? No, it is not. The level of knowledge, the level of information of the people are the same? No, it is not the same. So we have a big problem is that kind of problem that the language between the different communities, the different persons of the community and so on. So it's the big problem. For me, it's one of the big problems that we face to, how we say, to have.
So that's how you
withdraw
feel
the-
when you talk with local authorities. You're speaking a different language.
It's the different language.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I think it's very important for all of us. Attention, it's not a problem for the academics, for me, that I'm working with public policy and so on. It's how can we get sufficient, how we say, skills to put me in the level of a citizen that only have the primary school and so on. So we have really a problem with a question of language and how can we talk each other without excluding people, because the language that we use sometimes are so technical that are not understandable.
Okay, I understood. António, you made me a sign. Would you like to comment on
Just a
this?
sign of, because I believe it is important to clarify that vehicle sharing does not mean that we are sharing the vehicle with other people at the same time. We are sharing the vehicle with other people in different periods of time. I mean,
Well,
sharing
Uber, you can
vehicles like
share
that
it
is
at the
public
same time, for
transportation. We are
example.
together in the same vehicle with people that we don't know.
It's not the same.
And-
Our principle.
This is important because, so as before,
But you have
Professor
also that
Borrego was
option.
saying that vehicle sharing is an important
Yeah, there are a lot of-
evolution in the future. Of course, you are not sharing the vehicle at the same time with other people.
Exactly.
But you can
This is
also do
public
that.
transport.
You can
We already
also
have
do that.
for a long time.
You can share at the same time. It is possible.
There
But it's
can
not
be
mandatory.
In the future, shared taxis, etc. We have different people that know each other at the same time in the same vehicle. But we know that this will be difficult to implement because many people, I would say mainly women, that will not be very open to travel with other people in the same car at the same time, unless they are very well separated.
Well, I did already.
From the other.
I traveled.
You have all the-
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because this is this already. We go, for instance, to Brazil. They have these little vans that are traveling with 6, 10 people inside, and you don't know the other people. It's just like that. If you get used, perhaps it's not so dangerous. But still, we made some surveys some time ago, and we understood that many women, but not only, were radical. I would not use this kind of transport mode.
It can be unsafe, insecure.
I don't want to be with a stranger in the same vehicle at the same time. Basically. This was the argument that were given, and I can understand that. It makes some sense.
Robert
Some
Stussi.
men can be very inconvenient. We must admit it. It's
Women
very
too.
rare, but it
Women
happens.
too. Women too. Not only men.
Even women, okay.
Even women.
I will be more cautious next time.
I won't be inconvenient. I swear. Robert Stussi, in an aging society, what do you believe it will be the role of technology? An obstacle or an opportunity?
Why are you asking this to?
No, it's to you all. I can answer
We are
too.
all old guys, so she could ask anybody of us. Except
I can answer too.
except this young guy. It was the same as you said, that you don't like to share, or many people don't like to share a vehicle. You are talking probably of our age, but if you would ask your grandson, would he say the same thing?
I don't know.
Well, that was
There's a
little-
generation gap. Do you think
Yeah,
there's a generation
Because
gap?
as people say, they don't want to own a car, but they use a car. They might be also happy to mix up, because they anyway don't talk to each other. You know, if 3 young people meet in a coffee shop, you know that each of them looks at their phone and maybe sends a message to the other guy on the phone who sits on the other side of the thing. But anyway, coming back, I think we should do a lot about integrating people who have somehow reduced or are mobility challenged, because I hate the thing disenabled, mobility challenged. But that's again an example. We knew that for many years. We didn't need much science about it, and some did it. You know, I was arriving in Taiwan, and I needed wheelchair assistance because of my knee. And in the airport, and usually they put you outside of the airport to the bus or the metro, and then they abandon you. In Taiwan, they brought me to the metro, they asked me where I go, and in the metro where I had to change metros, there was another wheelchair, and in the end station there was another wheelchair who brought me to the hotel. So imagine, and there was the little technology, they have the mobile phones or so, but they have the will to use the means. Here is always the excuse. It's always the excuse. For instance, the other thing is that many metros, it's the driver who gets out of the metro and puts in the wheelchair. When I talk to my people in Lisbon, they say, well, but the train could be late, so it's more important that the train is late than that I can travel on the metro, you see. So I think what you asked was an excellent example that I mean, technology can help. As I mentioned this Canadian example, there is another one in England. The English people, they claim that more people die falling down the stairs than by car. So what they did, they developed an incredible lab where they shuttle and make move around the lab and find out how people behave, and then they try to change the shoes, everything to help that people don't die. So technology is important, you see, but well used, but we need also the...
But people are more important. Is that
No, I think it's important
the
that
headline?
people who
Or behavior,
are
people
responsible
behavior.
for transport are really taking it serious, because we have always 1001 excuses not to do it when we could do it even without technology.
João Lino, do you also feel like Bernardo Campos have said that the policymakers, the companies, the scientists, you all speak a different language? Because you were saying previous that you don't have a road to follow, and that's for you the main goal.
A common line, yes. No, I think that, for instance, universities are each day more open. They participate in the life of the cities, and not only of the cities, but all the territory. They participate with companies, they work with companies, and I think we are speaking already the same language, for sure. I feel that universities and companies are each day more connected and need private companies, and the companies need the university, and the university need the companies, of course, find better solutions for the problems that all we are facing. The politics, probably they are learning or they are trying to adapt the language to the real world, for sure. I think that the last years we are facing some challenges, and things are changing. I think that we are each day we are more connected, and the difference of languages of course are not so important.
So,
And concerning to, for instance, I think that we are speaking about mobility, and I think for instance in the future, speaking about the
decarbonization.
yeah, I think that for sure you must integrate all the solutions we have, all the good solutions, and for instance even not so good solutions to provide opportunities to the people to go from A to B. Of course, we must complement the heavy systems of transportation with other systems like Uber, like Cabify, or like
My taxi, or
taxi, or other ways. And I hope that in the future the private car is going to, I hope that it's going to assume a not so important paper in our life. I think that, for instance, in Portugal, especially in Portugal, we build the cities for private cars, not for public transportation. During decades, we forgot mobility, we forgot good practices, we forgot public transportation, we forgot railways, and now 30 or 40 or 50 or 50 years after, we are understanding that.
so you do
we
believe
must-
if you lived in a country with the intelligent, frequent public transport systems, with the real-time multimodal planning tools, would you be available to leave your car at home, or not even having a car?
Yeah, of course. When we go to foreign countries, what we do? We go by metro, by bus, by train, and it works. And for sure.
Just on holidays, or
No, or working. I work.
Abroad,
I
yeah.
work 14 years in Spain, and I use private, I use public transportation, so it works very well. It's a question of mindset, it's a question of depth, and for sure, if there are passengers, the solutions are going to appear and are going to be good and to satisfy the needs of the people. So I think that it's a way. It's a pity that we forgot these good practices during so many years, but it's better to wake now than to maintain the
Than to sleep forever.
same status quo. Yeah.
Carlos Borrego, in your opinion, will automation in the transport sector create new opportunities?
Yeah, it's really a challenge, but it is an opportunity as well, especially for aged people. You have asked before about that, and I think that this is there, where the people can have a lot of solutions that now are difficult for them. We are here mostly senior ones. This is why some positions have been taken, because with young generation there are no concern about all of these things. But I think that the automation and artificial intelligence will be one of the most important in the future, in order to get sure that we will have, not only in cars, but most of the society areas, possibility of everybody have access to the real needs that they feel in that moment. And for that is necessary that the people will build this artificial intelligence, know what the people want, again. Because otherwise we will have solutions that are not made for us, but for something completely different. Again, the people should be involved at the beginning on the description of this. And this is why at universities we are doing some workshops discussing this type of future. What is the smart future that we should have? And get from the people the information and try to see if the research can cope or not, at least now, depending on the future, but at least now, cope or not with
These expectations.
People that the people want. And also let the young people to put out from themselves what they think about the solutions. Before coming here, there was a number of questions, and I asked my young researchers at the group, please answer to that, because my answer is someone that is already passed away.
Oh God.
At least it is not. And then I have asked, and the answers were very interesting. Not exactly what I was expected to have from my side. And I think that this is this type of possibility of having young people also influencing what is the need of research and so on, that we can give better solutions.
António, making a connection with your previous subject, do you believe that automation can bring opportunities but also social problems like unemployment?
At least from some taxi drivers, perhaps. Okay, no, I believe that it will change our lives. Automation, I mean fully automation, which already exists. Let me tell you that a few months ago, I have driven, I did not drive, did not drove a car, 50 kilometers in the motorway without touching the driving wheel. So this is already possible, this exists already. And it was a car from Mercedes. Okay, I had to touch, because we need to touch the driving wheel just to confirm that you are alive yet, but otherwise you did not drive. So level 5 automation, what is called level 5 automation, is already here. Of course, it will not work outside the motorway, because of course in the motorway you have good marks, so the car can follow the marks and follow the other vehicles, and it works. But
No pedestrians usually.
Exactly. No pedestrians also. But let me tell you that. So I had the car for these 50 kilometers between Pombal and Anadia or Mialhada. And so it was perfect. So I would have no problem at all at using this car to come to Porto, to come to Aveiro, etc. We could use it as it is, as the technology is now available today. So this exists. You cannot use it really in Portugal because of the overcoming, which is not possible, but the car can overcome other vehicles. And in Germany, I believe they could overcome. So you could. So this will change your life. This is certain, mainly when you can use them in a city, which so you don't have people and other marks. Now, one of our researchers, Gonçalo Correia, that some of you know well, has been doing, I believe, a wonderful job analyzing what would be the implication for our lives of automation. So, what are the changes? The changes is that you don't need to park your car near where you work because you arrive, you send the car to a parking place that perhaps is 5 kilometers or more away in the countryside, and then come back to pick you, and then perhaps you will go through the school with your children, etc. And this will completely change our life.
And you can do
So
something else during the journey. You
can change.
sleep or
change.
work or
This is
something.
one of those evolutions that will really change our life. Would this bring unemployment? I don't see why. I don't see really why.
Well,
I
for
would say
drivers,
no.
for
I
example.
cannot understand why this will bring unemployment. But let me also use my last bullet, probably,
Yeah.
because my previous participation here, so I was a little pessimistic about the collaboration of researchers, of research and science and the world, etc. So because of perhaps some previous experiences that already have some problems, I've always believed that the main collaboration that we in academic research centers could give to policymakers and to practice would be preparing good researchers with a good innovation mind that then will work for these companies and authorities and will help innovate. And so I believe that this is our main role. So prepare researchers that will, innovators with an innovation focus. How can I convert ideas that come from science into ideas that can work in practice? And we are doing so with some success. There is something that you need to have before, is to have science in your country. And we already have that in Portugal. So we now have, let's say, a strong, relatively strong, that is, transport research community in Portugal that is competing with Spain and France, perhaps not yet with Sweden, which is probably the country with the highest levels of publication rates and citation rates, etc. But we are at that level. So we have already science, and we are producing PhD graduates with these characteristics. Now, what is the problem now? Because there is always a problem in the end, is that they are not staying in Portugal, because they are not well paid here, so they are working for consultants like PwC or Deloitte or others, but not here. So they are moving abroad. They are working for Amazon in logistics, they are working for European investment banks, so they are working a little everywhere.
So
they are
Portugal
not
is
anymore
losing
staying in
brains.
universities.
Portugal is losing brains.
They are not staying in universities like they would do in the past, but they are not staying in Portugal. So, what was our idea, me and José Viegas and others initially, which would be, okay, now that we'll have researchers here, so they will then work for CP, they will work, and they will bring innovation into CP, they will work for STCP in Porto, for Metro in Lisbon and in Porto, they will work for TAP, etc. But this is not the case, because they are working for airlines in other countries, they are working for transport consultants in other countries, etc.
And why is that? Because
Why
they're
is that?
better paid.
First of all, it is
better
because,
paid abroad.
No, No, it is simple. First, it is because it is today relatively simple to live in Europe. Okay, you can go there, you come back for the weekend. This has also to do with low cost, etc. So you can organize your life at a different geographic scale. This is one thing. And also there are other things that are other. So the world changed in a direction that allows you to work in Luxembourg. You are extremely well paid working for Amazon there. And then you come back here every two weeks and you see your girlfriends or boyfriends, etc. And it is like in the past when some of our colleagues lived in Trás-os-Montes and they have to travel for, let's say, 10 hours to get to Bragança and get back. They don't need to take 10 hours to go to Luxembourg. They take 2 or 3 hours and they are here. So we have changed. So, for us, in the end, we have a problem because these people that we prepared that should be working here to improve our transport companies and not only, are working outside, in Sweden and the Netherlands. There are lots of them that are in the Netherlands, in the United Kingdom. And this is very good for them.
As you must have heard the bell from my cell phone rang, that means that our time is finishing, so I'll ask you to talk briefly. Bernardo Campos, would you like to comment on this?
An example that our language is not the same. For instance, our colleague
João, Lino.
talk about the experience he had in Spain in public transport. He talks of a concept on the side of the demander. Me, citizen, can choose go by a bus with other people, or I can choose driving my car, or walking, of course. But the same thing is not, the same word is not just understandable that this way by the law, jurista,
Lawyer,
A lawyer?
a lawyer. So, why? Because in terms of legal terms, public and private are concepts linked to property. So, the same word using by Lucy, I don't know,
João.
is not the same word that a lawyer can use here. You see? And how I should have the mind open to understand what about he's talking. Is the demand side or is the legal side? And it is not a question of, how we say, something that we can throw away. Because we have legal systems. And, well, they have some kind of concepts that they are very, very straight. You understand what I talk when we have difficulties of language. I'm sorry.
Robert, Stussi, do you want to comment? Or sorry?
Jump to the next.
Okay. João, Lino.
I think that we are facing new challenges. And I think that we must work together. We must participate together in finding the good solution for our problems. That's
It's a teamwork.
and for me it's not important
The language.
language. If we understand, it's the thing that it's important to go to score a goal, and that's important. I think that we are in Portugal. We are facing in mobility we are facing good challenges, and I think that we are going to change, and we are going to participate in a change, an important change in the next years.
Well,
But you know why? Because we need to reconstruct the knowledge. Because we lost that when the last people that I think that had some that kind of capacity was Leonardo da Vinci. After him.
so we're lost. For good.
No, we are not lost. No, we are not lost. What
We
have
need a
done-
new Da Vinci.
What we have done is to create science, different science, and so on. So it's obligatory, mandatory. What it says, because we have the need to reconstruct the knowledge. Because it's important that Professor Borrego, no, I'm not important, of course, and of course, importance of the journalist, of course. So
Well, thank you.
We need them, and beautiful journalists. We need them also.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry.
Thank you all. Robert Stussi, I would like to invite you to do the final remarks, and I would like to ask the audience to say, please. Okay, say.
Well, I'm the only one on the program who doesn't have a time limit, because it doesn't say until when I will speak. But since you are already over time and probably fed up, I will try to make a very short, friendly goodbye remark. Well, it's not the first time that we are in Aveiro, and I think Aveiro is one of these middle-sized Portuguese cities who are on the map, which are visible, the university and so on, having projects. I was together with the president of the Association of Electric Vehicle Users 10 days ago in Matosinhos in a conference organized by the ministry, and there were only presidents talking, you know, for the associations, presidents, we also. But in the public there were very few people, probably only the secretaries of the presidents. So it was actually really very boring. The theme was exactly the same, decarbonization of transport. So you brought here some 20 excellent people, older ones and younger ones, ones I know for a long time, ones I met now. And then they have this funny thing. I don't know, in Portugal they like very much to have the flags in the thing. So we have here the European flag. So we had a very nice presentation from Pedro Barradas. While it didn't work here, I talked to him over the computer. There it was working, who made an interesting intervention. Then we have a flag, which I don't really know which flag is it. Would it be Aveiro or maybe Agueda? Because strange enough, nobody is here from Aveiro. Not talking nor participating.
flag.
Or is there somebody?
Aveiro. Yes.
Okay, from the region. Anyway, Agueda is here, but they are partners. Then there is the Portuguese
The
flag. There
national
were a
flag,
few
yeah.
Portuguese speakers here. We have here the university, where we had excellent speakers, of course. But then we had, there are some flags missing. There is the Scottish flag missing. There is the Swedish flag missing, both with beautiful presentations. And then there are, strange enough, the Spanish and the Spanish flag missing, and the Swedish.
This is why.
Because they are also missing in the panels. For some reason or the other, maybe for time reason, the team decided that the Portuguese will speak here, or special invitees, but not the project partners. But there are a number of them. Why don't you stand up that we see how many people are still here from Spain, from Bulgaria? Stand up, because we met some of you in the coffee breaks, and we will meet you at the dinner. But okay, you were there listening to these long Portuguese interventions. In each conference, you know, I hate abbreviations, because we are always convinced that everybody knows our abbreviations. So today, Margarita was talking about VRU, and I was saying, we are rude, that one I should know, but I don't. Vulnerable road users. And why I was thinking about that? Because the title of the CISMOB, which is so long that I'm sure that nobody remembers it, and the title of the conference was saying from research to practice, they never talked if it would be on the private transportation side or on the public one. And when we went through the morning, I was a little bit surprised that we were only talking of cars, which is natural. The first thing is we have a new technology, so help me to park the car without me and automotive vehicles and so on. There is a great tendency worldwide that we think to improve the private transport. And then, when we went to the afternoon, and maybe because we had a fantastic moderator, Marta Rangel, the things start to get really to mostly public transportation and so on. And also the format of talking to each other, I thought was much more helpful and interesting than the usual PowerPoints which we can see in the internet. Not to criticize, of course, you two guys who had fantastic presentations. Because actually the Secretary of State, he said three interesting things. Yeah, he was of course also Matosinis. I don't know if he travels after me or me after him. But he said at least three interesting things. He said, mobility needs will increase. Don't forget about this, that people say we should consume less, which Professor Borrego said. We should maybe consume a bit less meat and so on. So they increase. But then he says, so we have to change the mix. If we don't change the mix with more mobility, we will never get to the goals of the COP23 from Paris. And then the third thing, what's also interesting, is that we have to have political will, because usually the politicians are thinking in the short term, and these problems we talk about are medium, long-term questions. So anyway, in the afternoon we were talking quite a bit about public transport. Now I mixed up my notes, so then I will finish quicker. Then the interesting thing was, you know, I'm a little bit fed up with the talk about smart. Everything is smart. Eh? And smart is useful, first of all, for selling ITS products. We had always ITS products, but smart was suddenly a new slogan which made it very interesting, very exciting, very sexy to think ITS. But today, actually, I didn't hear, I think, the word once, which is a good thing, because we went back to the real question, what is ITS helping us to do? And Brian proposed as the Newsbit homepage, where among all these new technologies we can kind of find out where we stand and where to go. Then Professor Borrego reminded us that we eat and drink 2 kilos, but we spend a lot breathing, that we have to be careful of what we are breathing, because he is also funny enough, and we didn't have this time to discuss. He says that electric vehicles are only a transitory technology. Maybe my friend there is not quite agreeing to it. But what is sure that, you know, there are about a dozen of world-renowned forecasts on energy, and one of the best probably is the BP, which is an oil company. And they just published the outlook of 2018, and they say there is no way that with the renewables we will manage. There will be still only 25% of renewable energies 20 years from now. So we really have to change how we use energy. And I think that's a clear message in addition to, you know, because every conference has one speaker who reminds us about what we are all convinced. But still, being convinced, we don't change our attitude or we don't change our research programs. And we really should remember that we have to change them. And now the last thing. You know, the advantage of McDonald's is, of course, that you have only like 3 menus, so you can very quickly choose your menu, and then you have a lot of time to eat and to talk, or at least to use your mobile phone. But when I was here the last time, Margarita Coelho invited me to the restaurant Teleiros, a nice restaurant here in Aveiro. And there you have the problem that you have like 10 pages to choose from the menu. So it takes a lot of time. Actually, we ended up to eating the same place, so that wasn't too bad, so we had time to talk. But what I wanted to say, so that's not a critique, that often when we organize conferences, we have a big menu in mind, and we put more and more and more things. And then the more and more things means that we have a little bit less time to converse among each other. Sorry to say that, it's really, I mean, it's a wonderful conference you brought here, fantastic people. Eloisa, Marcedo and Jorge Bandeira very discreetly organized everything and managed everything. So it was a very enjoyable conference. So, and especially now, at least in the afternoon sessions, we had time to talk to each other. Not to you, but next time around. So I think you are for congratulations and thank you very much.